Hey, it's your boy Bonte83 with Successful Convicts. Just want to put you up on what today is all about. Thanksgiving, right? You thankful? You happy? Cool. Eating good, all that. But what does this day really mean? First of all, before I get into that, subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave me a comment, whether it's positive, negative, or whatever, and share this video with a friend. Stick around. Be right back. Hey, it's your boy Bonte83 with Successful Convicts, and I'm here to talk about Thanksgiving. Okay, Thanksgiving. It's around again, and it's usually a day when, it's a national holiday, which means that majority of people, not saying all people, because some people still got to work, but majority of stores are closed or they closing early. A lot of people off work, and this is like one of those get-togethers where the family comes together and everybody, bring forth meals and, they get ready for the next holiday, which is Christmas, but, it's the preparation of that holiday. And, sit back, give thanks or think about things to be thankful for, and sit down and eat and break bread with each other. That's a good thing, right? Of course it is. But we all know that every American holiday or holiday period symbolizes something that has a significant reason why it's being celebrated. And, we are taught in school and through word of mouth about the Pilgrims and the Indians, the so-called Indians, which were really the natives of this land at that time. And real quick, how they got the name Indians is because Christopher Columbus thought that he was in India, which he didn't discover America. He had, navigators and stuff like that. He just got the credit for it. Same way in modern day, Bill Gates gets the credit for a lot of things that the people that he pay come up with. He brings it forth. He gets the credit. Anyway, not to get too much on that, but this holiday has a deeper meaning than just the Pilgrim and the Indians, which the story goes, the Indians, they took the Pilgrims in because they were kind of like, out lost or whatever. They took them in. They showed them how to cultivate the land, showed them about medicine, which, history has a way of repeating itself. Just as today, you're starting to see a lot of natural things coming back, like herbals, using herbs instead of medicines and all these inoculations and stuff like that, people being natural, the vegan movement, people eating fruits and vegetables instead of a lot of unnatural sources, GMOs and all that type of stuff. So anyway, the Pilgrims who came and so-called discovered this land or whatever came about. I'm not too 100% on this story, but long story short, the Pilgrims had a feast. They were supposed to be giving thanks to the natives, the Indians, and they slaughtered them. Yeah, same people that taught them how to work the land, taught them about medicines, taught them how to build and stuff like that. They slaughtered them. So, a lot of natives don't celebrate this holiday, but a lot of so-called black people, African Americans, or whatever you want to call yourself, because the true name is Moorish Americans, but we'll get into that. That has to do with nationality. And the laws of Just Soli and Just Sanguinis, which you can look those up, and the flags and all those type of things. But this story I'm about to tell you might blow your mind, even though if you know me or if you've been following me for a while, every year, as I get the text, Happy Thanksgiving, and I get the emails and I get the calls, it just kind of like saddens me that people don't know the history of this day. And if they did, why they wouldn't be celebrating it so, lively. Okay, so I'm going to go to this paper that I read every year, and I used to send to people, but it just gets tiresome, because if you don't know where you came from, you're definitely not going to know where you're at, and you won't know where you're going. So I'm going to briefly read through this, and then I'll give you a little input on it toward the end. So now the title of this piece is called Thanksgiving, and it's by Cheryl Lofton Wooden Bay, a Moorish American sister, and it's courtesy of Louise Ock-Il, another Moorish American sister. Okay, get right into it. And now for a little history lesson. Consider the following, which is not typically taught to the people. It all began in the year 711 AD, a very important and historical year for Muslims. And it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Christian, non-denominational, or whatever you are. This is just history. Ever wonder why you see so many Arab Muslim-owned stores called 7-Eleven, which are ran and operated by Arab Muslims? Now you know why. In the year 711 AD, the great Moorish warrior Jabal Tariq, which my son's middle name Tariq is because of this general, led an army of 7,000 fearless men, 6,700 native Moorish Africans, and 300 Arabs on the coast of Spain. On April 30th, Tariq and his army crossed the Strait of Hercules. He seized a great cliff and a portion of land around it, deeming it strategically important and beneficial. He instructed his army to construct a fortress on the site, which his men named after him out of respect and admiration. They named this area Raqqa Jabal, and it was later corrupted to Raqqa Gibraltar, which I'm sure some of you have heard of, if not most of you, maybe even all of you. After the arrival of the Moors, life would never be the same again in Europe. The Moors were commissioned by Governor Julian of Cuenca, Septa in Arabic, who sought revenge against the immoral and brutal King Roderick of Spain for sexually taking advantage of his daughter, who was under the care and guardianship of King Roderick while training at his court. The Moors were a dignified, proud, and noble civilization known for spectacular advances in science, medicine, and architecture, which included the invention of eyeglasses, these Cartier frames, the invention of the science called orthodontics, the invention of antiseptics, alcohol and silver nitrate, and hundreds of more profound innovations. The architectural innovation of the Great Mosque of Cordova is still one of the major sights to see in Spain. The Moors also invented the magnetic compass and the astrolabe, two medieval instruments that would later help Europeans travel the western seas and come into contact with many of the original peoples of the earth in which they later enslaved for European economic growth and prosperity. Spain became sophisticated by beautiful and stunning Moorish architecture. Beautifully designed mosques, libraries, and schools sprang up in Moorish cities. Water fountains and public bathing and restroom facilities were made available to every citizen of Moorish cities. Education was offered to all citizens, including women, who were denied education in Europe during this time. Moorish Spain became the light of Europe, which was engulfed in the Dark Ages. Yeah, at that time, Europe was savage land. It was dark. They didn't have streets. They didn't use soap. I mean, this is all history. I'm not just making it up. This is history that you can find. The standard of living far exceeded that of the Europeans, who were jealous and envious of the Moors' accomplishments in Spain. The Christian Spaniards fought hard to rid Europe of their benevolent Muslim conquerors. There were eventually many bloody Muslim-Christian battles. A good movie showcasing these battles is El Cid, featuring Elizabeth Taylor. The powerful Moors were able to hold off the Spaniards for nearly 800 years. Finally, in-house fighting and interracial sexual relationships between Moorish men and white Christian Spanish women, who remained covertly loyal to Christianity, weakened and destabilized the Moorish Empire and led to consecutive military defeats. In the year 1491, the Moors surrendered the city of Granada, however you pronounce it, the last stronghold. On November 25th, 1491, the Moors signed the Act of Capitulation, after which King Ferdinand II, Spain's King Ferdinand II, and Queen Isabella took possession of the city. The Spanish Christians were thankful for the Moors giving Thanksgiving up Grenada in the Islamic rule in the country. This was a merry and festive day in the eyes of the Europeans and would henceforth be a day of thanks. The defeat of the Moors brought three options. One, replace their Islamic and Asiatic customs with European customs and Christianity. Two, be expelled from Spain. Or three, face execution. After the expulsion of the Moors, Cardinal Ximenes, backed by Pope Alexander the 6th, Roman numerals, of Rome and Queen Isabella, ordered the destruction of the beautiful and stunning Moorish libraries and mosques. Many Moors were driven into West Africa and were later captured and sold into America as slaves. Some of these slaves came on the slave ships of Christopher Columbus, a Spanish Jew, who was commissioned by Queen Isabella on his voyage to the New World. Many other Moors sought refuge in the country of Anatolia. These expelled Muslims, Moors, from Spain would later be called Turks, as in Turkish Moors, which is numerous of books about the Turkish Moors. And the country would later be renamed Turkey by Europeans. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and you can see the correlation into today's times. After the expulsion of the Moors, Europeans began to annually celebrate November 25th. There would be great feasts all over Spain and Europe. Turkey bird was not the main meat dish served, but a fat roasted pig with an apple in his mouth, representing or symbolizing rebirth or a new beginning. Europeans ate so much on this feast day that virtually nobody could work the next day, which explains why in modern times many corporate jobs give their employees the day after Thanksgiving off. Because I'm off today and tomorrow also from my job. Years later, Europeans began to take revenge on the Moors, now called Turks, because of the sexual relations the Moors held with white Christian Spaniard women. History repeats itself. The black men, Moors, were mockingly called turkeys and were called this by European men because of their alleged wild, uncivilized nature. European Christians would now go on a turkey shoot or turkey hunt. The hunting of the stern Khajarite Moor from Turkey, Anatolia, became an act highly regarded by Europeans at the time. In the process of the turkey shoot, Europeans would engage in the wholesale slaughter of the black-skinned Turkish Moors. Innocent Moors would be hunted down cold-blooded by European Christians. Many others would be captured, tied by their wrists and ankles with rope, and roasted alive, just like you roast that turkey bird in the oven for Thanksgiving dinner. The Moors that were not roasted alive were laid on the ground, and a European male would take a knife and literally carve up the Turk, which is what many people are reenacting when they carve the turkey bird on Thanksgiving. This bloodied, carved up Turk, Moorish man, would then have his internal organs removed and his body stuffed with certain fabric material, the Sikh origin of stuffing the turkey bird with bread or stuffing and dressing. The Moorish women were literally carved and cut apart the way meat eaters and butchers today cut up a chicken. Many European men would say, "Give me a breast," or "I'll take a thigh," or "I want a leg," just like meat eaters do today when they are ordering fried chicken. Breasts, thighs, legs, all are female, sexual related, and connotative body parts, as women are sized up and critiqued by the size of their breasts, thickness of their thighs, and the smoothness and build of their legs. Feminist meat eaters should think about the sexual politics of meat the next time they brutally bite into a piece of chicken, or any animal commonly eaten today for that matter, as all eaten meats are female. Now think about that. That's crazy. But yet, this is history, and is it coincidence? Is it the truth? Think about it. After this violent and brutal act, European men would then engage in joyous merrymaking, which would culminate with a great big feast. This is what you call Thanksgiving, and eagerly every year celebrate under the false notion that you are celebrating the friendly act and feast between Native Americans, so-called Indians, and European settlers called Pilgrims. In regards to African Americans, descendants of the great Moors, they foolishly today celebrate Thanksgiving. Yes, they celebrate Thanksgiving and feast the same way the Europeans did after they conquered the Moors on November 25th, 1491, which was on a Thursday. And in this, they celebrate the loss of their land, the rape of their own women, the murder of their own children, the humiliation of their own forefathers, the fall of their empire, the enslavement of their own people. They celebrate this dark and shameful day on their own people and call it Thanksgiving. So, that's the history lesson for today. This is why I don't reply to the happy holidays, the happy Thanksgiving, because I know the history of this holiday, which holiday is the breakdown and the joining of holy day, which how many holidays really are holy? But hey, this is my take on it, and this is why I think the way I think, because you're only accountable for what you know. So even when I was eating meat, I'm no longer eating meat. But back when I was eating meat, I wouldn't eat turkey on this day. And this is the example I give people, right? Let's say you have a brother, or let's say your grandfather. Your grandfather was killed by, let's say he was killed by the police for whatever reason. He was into moonshine. He was a real political activist in the community, for the people. And let's say they killed him at the pizza place, right? They killed him at the pizza place. So every year on that day that they killed your grandfather, they celebrated at the pizza place. Then later on down the line, they just celebrated it by eating pizza on that day. Then as time progressed, more and more people joined into the celebration of your grandfather, and it became a holiday. Stores were closed, work would be called off. Then, as time progressed, it became a city holiday. Then it spread into a national holiday. Now, years and years later, your great-great-great-grandchildren are celebrating this day, eating pizza on the day that their forefather was killed. And the reason they eating pizza is because the police bogusly killed him at a pizza place. Would you take place in this holiday? Would you eat pizza on that day? Something for you to think about. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as always, and I'm going to put a link to this story where you can read it for yourself, or you can print it out, photocopy it, give it to family members or whatever. But hey, it's a national holiday. It's a day to get with your family and truly give thanks to what you're thankful for. It doesn't have to be a sad day and, I'm off work, but I'm not going to celebrate. You don't have to celebrate this as a holiday. Celebrate as a day to get together because most people are off work. You know what I'm saying? That turkey, though. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment on what you think. Peace.